People say the quietest villages often hide the most horrifying screams. But what if a scream never escapes the four walls of a home? This is Shadow Files, and I'm your host. Today, we're turning back time to a September morning in 2014 in a remote mountain village in Hubei province, China. A 12-year-old boy climbs through a pried-open window and opens the front door from inside, revealing a brutal double murder so chilling that the locals will never forget. A mother, a young son, both savagely killed in their own home. No screams, no witnesses, no obvious signs of robbery. And yet, a single strand of arm hair caught on a cleaning rag, a text message sent at 3 a.m., and exactly 11 yuan in loose change gone missing would soon turn this seemingly hopeless case in a completely new direction. This is the story of Cao Tin-hung and the little boy she tried to protect with her very life. Early morning, September 14th, 2014. In the small village of Tui Tri, Shuizhai, nestled at the foot of the mountains in Hubei, a man named Chu Quan-hong stands quietly outside a newly built house next door. His wife had mentioned the night before, "It's been days since we last saw Ms. Cao. I can't reach her phone." Cao Tin-hung, 37, had moved here with her young son about a month ago. They were close neighbors. Now her house is strangely silent. Mr. Chu notices something alarming. The bathroom window at the back of Ko's house has its metal security bars bent and pried off, lying on the concrete ground. The front door is still locked from the inside. A chill of dread runs through him. Something is wrong. He and his adult son call over the family's 12-year-old grandson. The boy's slim frame allows him to climb through the narrow bathroom window. Moments later, the front door clicks open from within. The door swings wide. No one is prepared for what they are about to see. Upstairs in the master bedroom, under a floral quilt pulled up over the head, a lock of long black hair spills out. They lift the blanket. Cao Tin-hung lies on her back. She's still in her nightshirt, but her pajama pants have been removed and placed neatly beside her. Her body is covered in fatal stab wounds to the chest and neck. Strangely, her face looks peaceful. There's no splattered gore, no sign of struggle. It seems she died in silence, and in vain. Then they find someone else. Mr. Chu's son spots something in the narrow gap between the wardrobe and the bed. He peers closer and recoils. It's a child. It's Vian Bak, Cao's 9-year-old son. The boy's small body is also riddled with knife wounds, especially deep around his neck. Heartbreakingly, there are no defensive wounds on him. It looks like he either hid there or was dragged and tossed into the gap after the attack. They call the police. Within half an hour, the crime scene is sealed off and investigators begin their work. Inside a neat and tidy home, with no obvious signs of robbery or struggle, 2 lives have been snuffed out quietly without a sound, and the killer seems to have vanished without a trace. 1 house, 2 bodies, no cries for help, no clear evidence, no obvious motive. What unnerves the investigators most isn't what they see, it's what they don't see. After a preliminary examination of the victims, police return to where Mr. Chu first noticed the break-in, the ground floor bathroom. The window's 2 stainless steel security bars have been forcibly bent and torn away, discarded on the cement outside like scraps. The opening left behind is just big enough for a slim adult to wriggle through without much noise. Most importantly, there are no signs of forced entry at the front door. It was still locked from the inside with the safety latch engaged. This means the intruder didn't just break in. He stayed inside after killing the victims and likely left through the window the same way he came. Investigators start on the first floor. The scene is impossibly clean. almost eerily so. Every dish in the kitchen is clean and in place. The furniture is perfectly arranged. There isn't a scratch on the wooden table, not a stray drop of blood on the chairs or the white walls. It's too orderly, especially for a home where a violent double murder occurred. One young investigator blurts out, "If it weren't for the bodies upstairs, I'd swear this was a model home for sale." But the veteran detectives know better than to be fooled by appearances. They head upstairs to the room where Cao Tin-hung and her son were killed and begin to pay attention to the tiny details, the things that are out of place. On the bedside table, they find Cao's black crossbody purse. The zipper is unfastened. Inside, there is only a single 1 yuan bill, worth about 15 US cents. There's no wallet, no bank cards, no ID. Then, one officer suddenly recalls something. Just a few hours before her death, the victim was seen at a small grocery store near the village. Security camera footage showed her making a purchase and receiving 11 yuan in change. She placed that money in this very purse. So where did the other 10 yuan go? 10 yuan. Not even enough to buy lunch. On the surface, it's a trivial detail, but in murder investigations, the smallest detail is often the first thread that unravels the entire tapestry. Police note that no other valuables seem to be missing. The television is still there. A laptop on the desk is still open and powered on. This leads them to a chilling theory. The intruder was searching the house, but he didn't find what he wanted. And it's precisely because he found nothing of value that he killed. They turn to the bedroom closet. At first glance, everything looks normal here too. Clothes are carefully folded and stacked in neat piles. But a keen-eyed female investigator, known for her sharp instincts, decides to open each drawer and really look. She pauses, frowning. In the first drawer, she finds men's jeans mixed with women's tops. In the second, sleepwear and undergarments, both male and female, all jumbled together. No rhyme or reason, no separation of his and hers. There's no sign that two adults ever shared this closet in any organized way. To most people, this might mean nothing. But to an investigator, it's a glaring sign of something crucial. The scene has been staged. The killer did ransack the wardrobe looking for valuables, then tried to put everything back neatly. But he didn't understand the personal organization system that people naturally have in their own home. He thought neatly folded means everything looks normal, yet his version of neat was impersonal, haphazard, folded with an almost mechanical order that no real family would use. In those unnaturally tidy piles lies the telltale touch of a stranger. The air in the bedroom grows heavy, not just because of death, but because the evidence suggests someone remained in this room for a long time after committing the murders. He was here, alone, with two dead bodies, and he was calm enough to wipe away blood, search through closets, fold clothes, acting as if nothing horrific had happened at all. No cries for help, no blood splattered across the walls, only emptiness. The investigators step out of the room in silence. Someone whispers, voice uneasy. This guy wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't scared at all. He came here with a plan, and he took his time carrying it out. That afternoon, however, an unexpected detail emerges. A text message, sent at 3:01 a.m. from the victim's own phone, has come to light. It was sent to the homeroom teacher of Little V in Back, a message from beyond the grave. Some murders are discovered in the dead of night. Others, not until family report their loved ones missing the next day. But the case in Taoitre village was different. It lay undiscovered for over 2 days. No one knew. No one called for help. Not a single person even wondered why the mother and son had vanished. And the reason for that eerie silence was a text message, a single line of text, sent from beyond death. On the afternoon of September 14th, once the crime scene had been examined and the victims identified, investigators went to the elementary school where 9-year-old Vian Back had been a student for just 3 days. The homeroom teacher, Miss Lee, was the last person known to have been contacted from the victim's side via that text. When the officers informed Miss Lee that little Back was found dead, the teacher turns pale. She shakily pulls out her cell phone and shows them a short message that has been haunting her since she heard the news. "Hello, teacher. My son is ill and won't be able to attend school today. Please excuse his absence." Sent at 3:01 a.m. on September 12th. At first, Ms. Lee hadn't found anything strange about it. In this rural area, parents aren't always punctual or formal with absence notes. Some use a different phone number. Some don't mention the child's name or send messages at odd hours. But now, knowing that Cao Tin-hung and her son had in fact died before that message was ever sent, the text feels like ice. According to the coroner's report, time of death for the mother and son was between 9 p.m. and midnight on September 11th. In other words, by the time that text message was sent, both victims had been dead for at least 3 hours. So who sent it? There's only one answer: the killer. After murdering the mother and child, the killer took the victim's phone, scrolled through the contacts, found a number saved as teacher, and composed an innocuous, routine-sounding text, not to announce the murders, but to cover them up. His intent was crystal clear: delay the discovery of the bodies. If the teacher believed the child was homesick, no one would raise an alarm. The school wouldn't call to check in. No worried neighbors would knock on the door. No phone calls would be made the next morning. And by buying himself a day or two before anyone realized something was wrong, the killer would have plenty of time to slip out of the village, dispose of evidence, and disappear. This single text message had successfully bought the murderer over 48 hours of head start. 2 precious days of breathing room to get away. For the investigators, this changes the game. They're not just dealing with a brutal killer, but one who is coldly calculating. Someone who meticulously planned how to mislead everyone after the crime as much as he planned the crime itself. Whoever this person is, he's dangerous, methodical, and still out there. The pressure to find him mounts. After 3 days of gloomy, wet weather, the sun finally breaks through over TrueCrimeMystery. The first rays of sunlight spill across the concrete yard in front of Cao's house, a spot that, until now, no one paid much attention to. But sunlight reveals what rain hid, and one of those revelations is footprints. On the first day, when police first arrived, the ground was still damp and muddy. Smears of dirt on the concrete, mixed with old stains, made it hard to distinguish any fresh shoe marks. But now, the sun has dried everything out, and that's when the footprints appear, clear as day. There are at least 2 distinct shoe impressions side by side, leading toward the bathroom window where the intruder broke in. The sole pattern at the toe of the shoe looks like a V shape, and the heel has a sharply defined rectangular block, almost like part of a logo. The investigators crouch down to examine the prints. One of them feels a chill. These are not cheap shoes, and not the kind of footwear local mountain villagers usually wear. They canvass the entire village, roughly 300 households, and the answer comes back like a cold confirmation. Not a single person in the village owns shoes with this sole pattern. They extend the search to nearby shoe shops and local markets. Shopkeepers flip through inventory books and shake their heads. None have ever stocked a shoe with that tread design. A few even glance at the footprint photos and ask, "Those shoes, are they from the city?" This evidence leads to a new hypothesis. The killer is not a local villager. He came from elsewhere, and he knew how to get into TrueCrimeMystery, a place with no tourism, no reason for any outsider to randomly stumble upon. A forensics team gets to work analyzing the prints in detail. They reconstruct the killer's stance, direction of movement, and the weight pressure in the tracks. They measure the stride length, the depth of the front and back prints, the distribution of weight from heel to toe. From this, they draw a preliminary profile of the suspect. Gender, male. Age, around 20 to 25 years old. Height, approximately 1.7 meters, about 5 feet 7 in. Build, slim, and perhaps most telling of all, this person stood firmly. His weight was evenly balanced, no shuffling, no hesitant tiptoeing. In other words, he was confident. He didn't think he would get caught. One seasoned detective stands on the porch, staring at the 2 clear shoe prints. He doesn't say a word. He simply takes out a pen and circles something on the sketch pad where they've noted the profile. He circles a single phrase, familiar with the area. And indeed, when police re-examine the village layout, they realize something. TrueCrimeMystery is accessible by only one road in and out. No one just passes through this place by accident. No outsider would happen to find Cao Tin Hung's house either. It's at the far end of the village, tucked at the base of the mountain, far from the main road. A stranger would get lost on these back roads. A stranger wouldn't even know where to look for a promising target. But the killer did not get lost. He walked straight there. He pried open the window. He slipped inside. He committed his carnage. And he left in silence. This person isn't just from somewhere else. He had likely lived around here before, or at the very least, knew these parts intimately. He knew exactly which house to hit and how to get away in the dark. By now, police have a working description of the murderer. A slim young man in his early 20s, wearing city shoes, moving with the confidence of someone on his home turf. But they still don't know who he is. Not yet. That answer would only come when they returned to the crime scene and found something that no killer could fake. A single strand of arm hair caught on the rag used to clean the scene. In criminal investigations, there's an unwritten rule. When someone is murdered, start by looking at the people closest to them. So, as soon as police have a basic profile of the suspect, male, around 20 years old, slim build, about 1.7 meters tall, shoe prints from a non-local brand, they turn to the first name everyone is already thinking of, Vien Lap Dun, Cao Tin Hung's husband. Lap Dun is 40 years old. He's a farmer living in their hometown, a rural village nearly 100 kilometers away. His wife and young son had moved to this new house in TrueCrimeMystery about a month prior, while he only visited them occasionally. When investigators contact Vien Lap Dun by phone to inform him of his wife and son's deaths, his reaction is oddly calm. He doesn't panic. He doesn't break down wailing. He doesn't insist on rushing over immediately. He simply says, in an even tone, "I'll make arrangements and come." Police are immediately suspicious. His build roughly matches the suspect description. His foot size could match the prints. And perhaps most damning of all, he hadn't been able to reach his wife or child for 3 days, yet he hadn't tried to check on them in person. A husband, a father. Could he really be that indifferent? Vien Lap Dun arrives at the crime scene the next day. He is indeed slender and around 1.7 meters tall, as described. The investigation team quietly observes his gait, the way he walks, his mannerisms. They show him photographs of the shoe prints. He flatly denies any knowledge. "I don't own any shoes like that. I've never seen anyone wear that style around here." His answers are steady, without visible emotion or hesitation, but somehow emotionless. The lack of affect is unsettling. However, as they dig into his whereabouts, the police uncover a solid alibi. On September 11th and 12th, the time of the murders, Vian Lapdan was back in his home village hosting a housewarming party. He had invited a lot of relatives and neighbors. Multiple witnesses confirmed seeing him greeting guests, clinking glasses, drinking rice wine from noon until night on the 11th. He never left the village during that time. He didn't disappear. In short, he had no opportunity to commit the crime. His alibi is rock solid. Even so, the investigators don't eliminate him as a suspect immediately. There's still something off about his demeanor. And when questioned more closely about his wife, he volunteers an odd detail. "My wife had a habit of wearing the same style of pajamas every night. She slept in the exact same kind of outfit for 10 years, never changed it up." Which, eerily, is true. When the bodies were found, Ko Tin Hung had her nightgown on, but her pajama bottoms had been removed. This raises a question. How could he know that in such detail? And he doesn't stop there. He goes on to mention an old suspicion of his. About a year ago, back when the whole family lived in their old village, there was a man named Doi Duin Tung who had shown interest in Ko. It never went beyond rumor, but Lap Dun admits he was very jealous. Not long after, Ko Tin Hung decided to move to Tui Chai with their young son, leaving him behind to tend the farm. He tells police, "I trust my wife, but a man around that age, if he had bad intentions, it wouldn't be surprising." Taking note of this, the investigators shift their focus to Doi Duyen Tong. He's around 30 years old and lives in Dao Vian, a hamlet just a few kilometers from Tui Tri. He could have a motive. He knows the area well, and it's possible he might have been watching the victim's house. But then, the entire theory collapses with a single confirmation from the hospital. On the evening of September 11th, Doi Duyen Tung was actually in a traffic accident on his way home from work. He was beaten up badly and rushed to the emergency room, where he remained for 2 days under medical care. Security cameras in the hospital show his presence the whole time. His record is clean. His alibi is airtight, backed by video evidence. Doi Duyen Tung is crossed off the suspect list. Vian Lap Dun, despite his matching physique, unsettlingly stoic behavior, and unusual detachment, is also eventually ruled out after repeated verification. His alibi is unshakable, and all of his statements, cold as they may be, align with the facts of the investigation. Before he leaves, however, Lap Dun makes one parting remark. "If you're looking at suspects, ask about who's been watching that house from above. Who's been skulking around here, day and night. That person is not me." The police exchange glances. No one replies, but in each of their minds, a name is beginning to form. And then, when they return to the scene one more time, under the harsh white glare of forensic lights, something that had been lying quietly in a corner suddenly becomes the key to everything. An old cleaning rag, crumpled and shoved behind a cabinet near the second-floor bathroom. A rag with a tiny strand of arm hair stuck to it. By this point, investigators have revisited the crime scene 3 times. Each time, they came with a new hypothesis or a fresh suspicion. But on the 3rd pass, they arrive with one very specific question in mind. If the killer cleaned up after the murders, what did he use to clean, and where did it go? It sounds simple, but that question prompts the forensic team to rescan every square inch of the house. They search every nook next to the wardrobe, under the bed, even the gap where little Vien Bac's body was found. And then they find it. A crumpled old rag, ash gray in color, shoved into a narrow space behind a cabinet near the upstairs bathroom. At first glance, it was too ordinary to draw attention, which is why everyone overlooked it. It looked like just another old cleaning cloth. Carefully, They collect the rag and examine it. If this was used to wipe up blood, it could hold microscopic traces. In fact, under the microscope, they discover two crucial pieces of evidence: a single short arm hair and an almost invisible fragment of skin tissue clinging to the fibers. The lab tests come back. The hair and skin are human, and they contain a full DNA profile from a male. This is the breakthrough they desperately needed. The killer left behind a piece of himself. Investigators rush to compare this DNA against every database and record they can access. Days tick by, and then, in a medical forensic lab in Hubei, the DNA report is printed out, and one line sends a shock through the entire task force. It's a 100% match with DNA from the crime scene. The profile identifies a specific individual, Phong Vinh Kiet, 23 years old. Just days ago, this name meant nothing to them, just a young nobody living in Phu Hua, a village about 3 kilometers away over the mountain. Phong Vinh Kiet had never been arrested before. His name never came up in any criminal records, yet here it is. His very DNA is the final puzzle piece left behind on that blood-stained rag. Within 2 hours of getting this result, police raced toward Phu Hua village to arrest him. But Phong Vinh Kiet is gone. According to his frail grandmother, the only family member he lived with, he left last night, didn't say where he was going. He slipped away quietly in the dark, leaving no messages, no goodbyes. They notice one of his small backpacks is missing, the kind of thing you take when you're running away, not when you're just stepping out for a normal day. The killer who had calmly lingered to clean his crime scene is now on the run from the very DNA he unwittingly left behind. A nationwide arrest warrant is issued. Phong Vinh Kiet's ID photo, a youthful, bright face with high cheekbones and vaguely distant eyes, is circulated to every checkpoint and bus station across the country. Yet he doesn't flee abroad. He doesn't slip across any borders. He doesn't even hide in the deep mountains. Instead, he heads north, all the way up to Inner Mongolia, an unfamiliar, cold frontier far from everything he knows, and a place few would think to look for him. Investigators trace the digital trail he's left. Monitoring his online gaming account, they discover a ping. His account logged in just hours ago at a small internet cafe in the city of Bayan Nur, Inner Mongolia. A capture team is immediately dispatched. September 23rd, late afternoon. The police team storms into the internet cafe, sweeping row by row of glowing computer screens and gamers in dim neon light. And there, in the farthest corner, illuminated by the eerie blue glow of a monitor, sits Phong Vinh Kiet. He's thinner than in his photo. Dark circles shadow his eyes. One hand still rests on the mouse. His gaze is empty. He doesn't resist. He doesn't run. He doesn't say a word. He just bows his head and stays silent. During the 9-hour drive back to the Hubei police headquarters, he remains mute. He doesn't cry. He doesn't ask why he's been caught. He offers no excuses. It's as if he's already lived through this moment many times in his mind. Only when he's led into the interrogation room and confronted with photographs of the victims laid out in front of him does Phong Vinh Kiet finally nod. One slight nod, and then he begins to confess to everything. No tears, no blaming his circumstances. He simply says, "I didn't mean to kill the kid, but he saw me. He would have screamed. So I had to do it." The killer is 23 years old, a recently graduated university student, no criminal record, no diagnosed mental illness, yet he broke into a home simply because it looked wealthy, and he murdered 2 people simply because he found nothing worth stealing. Phong Vinh Kiet has been captured, but the biggest question still remains. How does someone who once sat in college lecture halls, someone who once had parents pinning high hopes on him, become a cold-blooded killer? He didn't come from a gang. He'd never been to prison. He had no history of mental illness. He was an ordinary person, all too ordinary. His name is Phong Vinh Kiet, 23 years old. He graduated from university that very year, 2014. His parents were working in another province to support the family, and he lived with his elderly grandmother. To his family, he had been the great hope, the pride of the clan. But after finishing college, Vinh Kiet failed to find a steady job. He bounced between short-term stints, quitting one place because the pay was too low, another because it was too far from home, another because the environment wasn't a good fit. 1 month here, he'd quit. 2 months there, he'd walk away. And then he just stopped trying. He began to spend his days at home, glued to his computer screen playing video games. Long, idle days funded by the money his parents sent, while he himself earned not a cent. And like many who are both failures and full of pride, he started to feel as though the world somehow owed him something. One day, while wandering around the neighboring area, he climbed a hill behind Dao Vian Hamlet. From that hill, you could see across to Tuai Tri village. From afar, one house caught his eye. It stood out with bright white walls, a new roof, a 2-story modern build in a region of mostly modest homes. He took interest. He started watching that house, day after day. Over time, he realized only a woman and a little boy lived there. No man in the home. No guard dog. Not even a surveillance camera. It was an ideal target for someone looking for a quick way to get money. On the afternoon of September 11th, Phong Vinh Kiet armed himself with a dagger, pulled on gloves, took some rope, and brought an empty backpack. His initial plan was not to kill anyone. He intended to break in, rummage for valuables, and slip away quietly. But plans rarely go as imagined. When the lights in the house finally went out, around 11 p.m., he made his move. He silently bent the 2 steel bars on the bathroom window, creating a gap, and slithered inside. Then he began searching. He found nothing of value, no cash, no jewelry, no safe full of money. And then, in the darkness, he accidentally knocked something over. The noise woke Cao Tin Hung. She jolted awake and reached out to switch on her bedside lamp. As the light spilled across the wall, she saw him, and he saw her. In that split second, both understood there was no going back. He lunged at her. He drove the knife repeatedly into her chest and a neck. When she slumped back onto the bed, he turned and spotted the child, Vian Bac, 9 years old, trembling behind the wardrobe. A child. A witness. He struck again. After killing both mother and son, he set about cleaning up the scene. He didn't panic. He didn't bolt out in a frenzy. He methodically wiped up the blood with a gray cloth. He tore through the closets looking for anything of value, and then strangely refolded every piece of clothing, trying to fake an orderly scene. He opened the victim's purse and took what cash he could find. 700 yuan, about $100 USD, a sum far too small to be worth 2 human lives. But before leaving, he did one more thing. He picked up the victim's phone, found the contact labeled teacher, and sent a text message. "Hello, teacher. My child is ill. He won't be able to come to school." That message was sent at 3:01 a.m. on September 12th. And then, Phong Vinh Kiet vanished into the night. He thought he had wiped away every trace. But what he couldn't wipe away was that single strand of arm hair snagged on the blood-soaked rag. A tiny sliver of skin, carrying the entirety of a cold-blooded killer's truth. A university graduate, once the hope of his family, who strangled his own future with his bare hands, all because of a lazy desperation and a few hours of watching a house from a hilltop. And 2 people, A mother and a 9-year-old child lost their lives simply because their home shone a little too brightly in an otherwise poor and desolate landscape. February 5, 2015, the Hubei Provincial People's Court delivers its final verdict in the case of Fang Vin Kiet. The sentence is read in a closed courtroom. No press cameras, no curious crowd, only the representatives of the law, the families of those involved, and justice itself. Sentence: death. Charge: premeditated murder. Fang Vin Kiet stands impassively. He doesn't protest. He doesn't break down. His eyes, according to a court clerk who later recounted the scene, were so cold that she had to avoid looking into them. He listened to the sentence as if he had expected it all along. No plea for mercy, not a single "I'm sorry." His parents, however, could not remain silent. They immediately filed an appeal, grasping at the faint hope of saving their only son's life. The reasons they pleaded were: he's young, just impulsive, he has no prior criminal record, he's educated, it was just a momentary lapse. They hired a lawyer, submitted a petition for leniency, trying to paint the picture that their son was not truly evil, just a misguided youth who lost his way. But the higher court rejected the appeal, not because the parents' arguments were entirely baseless, but because the facts were undeniable and the sheer brutality of the crime defied excuse. 2 people were dead, an innocent woman, a child of only 9 years old. They weren't just killed, they were killed silently, in cold blood, with calculation. The killer didn't just strike and flee in panic. He stayed. He wiped the blood. He staged the scene. He sent a text message to divert attention. And then he disappeared, as if he had never been there. That's not youthful impulsiveness. That is deliberate criminal intent, as sharp and clear as that of a seasoned professional. When the news of the sentencing became public, it sent shock waves through the community, not so much because of the crime itself, heinous as it was, but because of who the killer was. A young man, freshly graduated, no criminal past, from a decent family. Everything about him was normal, too normal. And precisely because of that, it was terrifying. People began asking themselves, if education isn't enough to keep someone on the right path, then what is? Because clearly, Fang Vin Kiet had knowledge, but what he lacked was conscience. He lacked the willpower to struggle through hardship. He lacked basic morality. He became living proof of something modern society tends to forget. Knowledge without ethics is a knife, and in the hands of the wrong person, it can kill at any moment. The case of Cao Tinhung and her son Vian Bac closed with a verdict that brought clarity. But the true ending doesn't lie in the courtroom. It lies with each and every person listening to this story. Because if you've ever thought that a murderer must be some bizarre, violent, or visibly unhinged individual, then let this remind you. A killer could very well have been a student sitting quietly in a college lecture hall, could have once been a child that parents proudly adored, and could be anyone who loses themselves at the precipice of desperation and despair. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. And before we conclude, I want to pose a question to you, as much as to myself. If one day life pushes you to the edge of desperation, which path will you choose? That just might be the most important question we ever have to answer in our lifetime.